Welcome to Script to Screen's Talks podcast. Script to Screen is a charitable organisation dedicated to developing the craft and culture of storytelling for the screen in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Part of our annual program, the Talks series, brings the creative community together to hear inspirational speakers delve into their creative process, craft, philosophy, or the broader creative landscape. Join us in this kōrero about taking your film to audiences in a COVID world, held in Wellington in May 2021, with New Zealand producers Georgina Conder and Vicky Pope. They talked to moderator and producer Alex Cole-Baker about their experiences taking their recent feature films to audiences in a world seriously impacted by COVID-19. Georgina is co-producer of long-awaited drama Cousins, and Vicky Pope is producer of ambitious debut feature Savage. The films have had a similar journey. They were both released theatrically in New Zealand in 2020 and are now both in the top 20 films of all time in New Zealand, having each earned more than $1.5 million during their theatrical runs at the New Zealand box office. Here, Georgina and Vicky discuss how they dealt with disruptions to their cinematic releases, the unexpected opportunities that arose along the way, and what they think will be helpful for you to know while the world adapts to this pandemic and a new normal.
I would like to introduce to you, although you probably have already read and heard and seen them around about with all their films, two spectacular producers. Vicky Pope, to my right here, is producer of Savage. She has also produced Gardening with Soul, and Two Little Boys, which got renamed, and has a past of producing short films and commercials. I'm right? Bunch of stuff, yeah. And a whole bunch of stuff. And then Georgina Conder is producer of Cousins, was also producer of Breaker Upperers and Reunion, and has a past life as a line producer, including Boy. So, a lot of experience to draw from tonight, but of course we are concentrating on Savage and Cousins. Can I just do a quick little read of the room and see who we've got in here? Plus, it's quite hard to see, so I'm going to have to guess. How many people here are producers? Put your hand up, please. Okay, that's two and a couple not sure yet. How many people have ever released a film, a feature film? One. How many think they're going to in the next 2 years? All right, so that's why you're here. And the rest of you, anybody here students at the moment and learning, come for some extra? Yep. And then directors? One. Cast, actors? Technicians? Other interested film people? Okay. Cool, excellent. All right. So both Georgina and Vicky we're going to find out tonight whether they were lucky or unlucky enough to release during a COVID landscape and whether that made any difference, what difference it might have been. I'd like you both to just introduce your film by saying, first of all, name of the film, when you released, and when you planned to release. So just a very quick question to start us off.
So my film's called Savage. Are we going to watch the trailers? Were we doing that?
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to do that after this?
Yeah,
okay.
if that works for you both, to do that, say when you planned and when you did, and then we'll watch it.
My film is Savage, and we shot that in 2018, and we're lining up a release in April 2020 and ended up releasing it in September that year.
So Cousins, we shot August, September of 19, and I really don't remember what our original release date was because it moved around a lot, but basically because of COVID, we got pushed out by about 6 months. Oh, sorry, and we released in March, and we're still in cinemas.
Yes.
Just.
So we'll watch the trailers, but they both have done exceptionally well. I wanted to say that they both made it to number 1 in the box office and both hit over $1.5 at about 1.5 million, and they're both on par. So that's quite nice. I don't have to sort of mention one did better or worse than the other. They've both done equally brilliantly. So if you don't know a lot about New Zealand box office, that is a great number to have reached. So I'm excited to hear how you got there.
Put it down.
Hold on!
Hey, none of us are angels. Probably the opposite. We wouldn't be gangsters if we always did what we were told,
Why do you wear that mask?
So you can see who I am.
You bring shame on us.
We'll look after each other, okay? Me and you.
Society put us in a hole. Freedom, that's all we want. So let your beast out voice be a savage.
Tag wants one job. You got this. I got it. I'm your Sarge.
Why didn't you come back? Mum searched for you for ages.
If you knew me, you wouldn't want me.
Mum doesn't want to see you. Why would she? You're just like the old man.
You stood Sarge you when I take over president. I'm personally gonna fuck you up myself.
One of us is gonna end up in the box. And it ain't me. Everyone can see who you are.
You want me to kill him? You don't go hardcore. You're gonna take me down with you.
Now for something a little different.
Mata? Cousin Makareta. You remember? When we were young. What happened to you, Mata?
What's the matter? You scared of the taniwha?
There you are. You're coming with me today.
Why's she got to go?
There's to be no contact with the Maori family. I am her legal guardian.
I often think of my cousin.
But she didn't have anyone.
She had us. They didn't know where she went, cousin. They knew. They just wouldn't tell us. Yellow, white, blue. So beautiful. We're going to get you back, Mata. I promise.
Ngā aho e toru. Ngāra e toru. Ka piri. Ka wehe. Ko tiwai tia e te wā.
E hine, no te pānau Poirama? Poirama, that's your name, eh? I know your people.
I'd like to introduce one of our honour students, Makareta Peirama.
It's Pairama. Makareta Pairama.
He's not scary, just ugly like you.
Your place is here on this land, girl.
You better run, you little baby.
Where are you from, dear?
I'm from the Mercy Home for Desolate Children.
What about your people?
They didn't want to keep me. I tried to find you, Mata. We all did.
They're so cool, aren't they? All right, well, look, let's start with Vicky, because you released first. You released in September. What was going on in the theatrical exhibition space at that time? What were you heading into? What was possible and what was not possible as a real starting point there?
Yeah, so it was quite a crazy time, and the theatrical landscape across the world was, and still is, suffering as a result of COVID. That meant cinemas closing across the world, festivals being cancelled, and a lot of the big studio releases being pulled. Or at the time that we were releasing, the studio releases that still remained in place were bumping around on their schedule.
Can you just explain exactly what that means? Because just thinking about who's here, like...
Yeah, so when you sort of head into release, one of the big things that you decide is the date that you're going to go out on, and that is really carefully strategized in partnership with your distributor. And there are all sorts of things that come into play around how you date the film. Often it's got to do with something related to your film, like Florian Habish's film's just gone out on James and Izzy, which hopefully lots of you have seen. But that was dated on around Mother's Day. Other things that come into play are what else is on the schedule, and the schedule is basically literally a schedule of the films that are booked and the dates that they're booked on to go out to be released in cinemas. And one of the things for New Zealand films is that you're always competing, well, traditionally, until COVID struck particularly, competing with the large-scale studio blockbusters for dates. So it's not ideal to go out against the big studio blockbusters because they just suck up all of the audiences. So that means for New Zealand films you're often, quite mobile on the schedule because those studios, films can come up and book into dates that you've already pre-booked and suddenly kill the date for you, so you have to re-strategise around that. But with COVID in the mix, it removed a lot of the studio blockbuster films from the schedule. They all got cancelled, and a lot of them still haven't come back into the booking schedule. But the ones that remained, we were dealing with Tenet, which was globally seen as a film that could potentially reignite the box office. So there was quite a lot of pressure around that film in particular, around whether it would go out and whether it could show that there were still audiences prepared to go to cinemas. And so it was a really fluid environment, and much more than it normally would be. And our sort of run at the going out really started the year before. We finished our film and delivered it in sort of October 2019, and we're lucky because looking back now, we were super lucky because we basically delivered and went straight into 2 international festival selections. So we literally delivered 1 week, and then we were on a plane to go to Busan and London film festivals with the film to screen it internationally, and then came back to start working towards our release, which was initially strategized to go out in April 2020. And it was funny. It's funny looking back on it because at the time I remember feeling my biggest worry was actually the other New Zealand films at the time, because to me they were sort of, in a way, our greatest competition. And I certainly don't see other films, New Zealand films, as competition. Usually I'm super supportive of all our films, but you know, when you're trying to book dates, there's you're kind of always trying to figure out, well, what else is going to be out. And our distributor was Madman, and they had on their slate for 2020, they had The Legend of Barontoa, This Town, Baby Done, and Us. So 4, as well as 660. 660, I think that was on theirs as well.
I think it was.
Or maybe it wasn't, but 60 was coming through as well. So quite a few films that actually commercially were showing quite good prospects for box office. And so we actually had been looking at dates in October 2020, but Baby Done dated, and everybody felt that was going to be very commercially successful. So we then looked at February, and Barontoa dated, and then we went to April and landed on April, and we were very comfortable with that date and had kind of figured out a strategy to go out around that when COVID struck. And things just got more and more complicated from there. I was saying to the guys before that one of the things I did, I'm usually quite media shy, but one of the things that I have done in the last wee while is a radio interview because with Simon Morris on RNZ, because I had a media personality come to me and say, "Oh my God, you know, you've been so lucky. All the studio blockbusters have gone. That, you know, audiences are going to just go running into the theatres and watch your film, and it's such a boom time for New Zealand films, and how fortunate for you." But it really, really did not feel like that at all. And we had to work in ways that, you know, normally filmmakers would not be required to try and survive the year and try and do the absolute best that we could for the film. And for us, it had been a sort of, by the time we got ready to release it, had been an 8-year journey of nurturing a film and the screenplay and pouring, you know, all of our love into this project and surviving all sorts of things to get it to a stage where we could get it to release. And suddenly all we had was COVID. And the complications came out in things like these studio blockbuster films like Tenet bumping around in dates, so we'd date and then we'd have to shift again. And we were fortunate because we had a UK theatrical release that was going to go out following our New Zealand release, and our UK distributor made a sale to to MGM, and that forced them to date the UK, and we were very committed to making sure that the film went out in New Zealand. So we were suddenly forced to, in amongst all the other manoeuvrings, it sort of eventually squeezed us into a spot where we just couldn't move anymore. And it was quite a strange time because we'd get these calls of, you've got a great sale to MGM, but and then there would be, but it's going to date your film and you have to go out on this date. And that, you know, so I'd have that, it was a real roller coaster of, you know, this is great, but this is terrible. And we ended up finishing up putting our date down, and then we had the Auckland.
Yeah, there was another lockdown.
So we had this this whole run towards a date, and the run, for those of you that haven't done it before, is quite substantial. So it involves strategizing all of your PR and your marketing, and for us with a film like Savage, we'd worked a lot with community cast, and we carried them with us through the process of making it, and you know, we had a sort of a duty of care to them all to take the film back, because particularly for community cast, it was the first time any of them had been ever involved in a film, and it was a really big deal. So we had a lot of people around the film who were just desperate to see it, and I'd been, trying to keep people abreast of what we were doing, but consistently it would change. So and I was super aware of just things like, if we put a premiere date down, then all of my community cast around the country are going to book their flights. And I was aware that if they booked flights and then the dates moved again, it would be at a cost to them. And so it's sort of, as you can tell from the things that I'm laying out, complicated.
Can I leap in a little with just where that's going in my mind to ask you, though, is obviously, things shifted. We all had the giant lockdown in March last year, and then the current COVID landscape. What do you think of what you went through then is still going to be a risk or a concern or something to work around for people now? I mean, I think we still think that lockdowns could be possible. And so what did that mean for you when you suddenly had that lockdown, and could that kind of thing happen again?
I certainly think it can still happen again. I don't think by any stretch we're through the end of this, but I mean, in a way, I think the people have perhaps feel a little bit more secure in the the patterns of things a bit more now, so that perhaps the blows feel a little bit less unanticipated. But
you did great things though. Like
we were. It was
4
amazing.
Different. Now, were they the cast and crew or the premiere?
It's the premiere.
It was the premiere. So I attended one of 4 that were on the same night. So I mean, I think for producers particularly, you guys have had to really just Rubik's Cube your brains to pieces to just suddenly deal with that. I was I was trying to sort of think how to, because I'm sorry, I just leapt in to help with this from yesterday. That sort of beginning, middle and end journey of this, that when you were in the thick of it, you must have had to have used your brains sort of massively and just keep things going.
It's a quintessential film, skill set. It's kind of what we all do when we make things, is get used to changing, challenging environments. So in a way, our resilience in relation to the situation, we couldn't have been better armed in a way. And we did lots of fun stuff and things that normally would have taken a month to plan, we did in a day. So it compressed all of our time frames. But you make good decisions. And and we did things like the premiere night was, we ran 4 screenings of the film across 2 screens, because we could only put 100 people at a time in a cinema space. So Sam and I and Wayne Happy ran around the 4 screenings. So we had, which actually was really fun, and we just didn't stop. The downside of it was that we literally didn't stop, so we didn't get a chance to talk with people a lot, which normally is such a big part of a premiere experience, because we totally missed we started the evening with our cast and crew screening, and by the time we got round of our other 3 film introductions and back to the cast and crew drinks session, it had sort of all wrapped up. So we kind of missed out on that.
But did it actually seem like really fun? And amongst all of that stress, I have to say how much they just seemed very calm, very enthusiastic, and just took everyone along for that ride. Now, Georgina, you would have been seeing all of this ahead, having also finished your film and been looking for a date. You would have been watching what everyone else was doing, and deep in all of that, what happened for you with your distribution plans, and do you want to talk about what happened there?
We've actually released 2 films in COVID. So we had Reunion, which is a psychological thriller, and then Cousins, and both we were affected by no film festivals by then, or if there were film festivals, they were virtual. And with Reunion, we got into some festivals, and we've got MPI as our world sales, and they weren't prepared for us to be involved in that because they were worried about security, pirating. So even though we got into some festivals, we had to say no. And then with Cousins, we got shortlisted for quite a few, but then never got in because they were festivals that would usually have, anywhere from 50 to like 200 films, and they were now showing just 7, and again virtually. So for us, that you get the first decline, and you think, oh well, it's fine, we'll be fine. There's plenty more, and you get the second, then the third, and then you decide, well, you know what, we did, and ultimately we always had this in the back of my mind. We made this film for New Zealanders, so we just decided we would just go. And but also on the back of that, so that's what happened with both of those. And with both of our films, we lost our distributors because of COVID. And
can you just say kind of like what you really mean by that? Like, what did they do? We don't like you anymore?
No,
or we don't want to do it. We can't do it. What?
No, they said for financial reasons they couldn't do it anymore. And so we then had to
fill a gap in your finance plan.
Well, that's the interesting thing. Yes, you do. But you can't because you're fully budgeted and you're contracted and you've actually spent that money in most ways. So we had to then go out and find new distributors, and that was quite a challenge. More so for Reunion than with Cousins, actually. So with Cousins, we've got another film at the moment that we've just shot called Going, and we were working with Vendetta and really loving that experience with Vendetta. And although we'd initially spoken to them about Cousins, someone else had courted us quite hard because for those of you that don't know, Cousins was actually in development for over 20 years. We have had it for the last 7, but a lot of amazing female producers and directors before us have had it. And so our original distributors had come on board earlier when actually Galen Preston was trying to do it. So, and we felt that they were right. So we were able to actually go to Vendetta, and Vendetta have been amazing. It's quite a big film for Vendetta. Like they'd done Born to Dance before, but usually they do smaller films, and but they have been amazing and so supportive. And so when Vicky was talking about the dating, I think in many ways, I mean, it's terrifying for us anyway, but it is even more terrifying for them because that is their only business. So if they date it wrong, they're fucked. You've had it.
I was going to say that the thing that I saw happening from a distance with the distributors who, they've got a slate of films. So we were one on the Madman slate of, I don't know how many films, maybe 15 or something. And every time dates shifted or lockdowns happened, they had to shift their whole slate of films, which means redating, recommunicating with all, with the 100 and something cinemas around the country, and rebooking all their PR. And you could see, like from a distance, you could see how stretched, and they're quite small teams, and Madman's team is really only 3 or 4 people. So it's just a phenomenal amount of work that they were having to cope with. And I never felt it. I was always so impressed with, their capacity to cope. But
they also have to even change their strategy because for our 2 films, the strategy was you get into an international festival. Reunion, the director Jake Mahaffey he had done very well in festivals before. He'd won the Spirit Award, which is like this independent award for a very small film that we made a few years ago called Free Indeed. So we were expecting to have on the poster some really nice festivals, and then everyone would go. And then everyone would go and we'd be fine. And that didn't happen. So your strategy actually had to start again. And with Reunion, we ended up kind of going into partnership with a company called 387, and we're their first ever New Zealand film. They've now done They did Dawn Rage, didn't they, Chris? Yeah, they did, right? Yeah. So they were already, they were getting ready for Dawn Rage, but they'd never done it before. So even then, just working with them, and we kind of did it in partnership. So we had to put in some money and they did the rest. So it's, a different way.
What do you think that you notice had changed with the audience for the release of Cousins that you think is still gonna, that's gonna be how it is, and whether that's with theatrical or with, well, you're still in cinemas, so we'll come to some digital.
I mean, we've been incredibly lucky. We've been in over 120 cinemas, so that in itself is unheard of. It's because there is no other content, which is amazing. But and right from the beginning, actually, most of the big said we'll hold you for 4 weeks, which again doesn't usually happen. They'll usually commit to 2 weeks, and then if you don't do well, you're out. Reunion was like that. It was 2 weeks and you're out. Some kept us if they were doing well, but actually right from the get-go, they were saying, 4 weeks. But like Vicky, we found Auckland very, very slow. So when we released, Auckland was in... sorry, I've been living in London, so I find the levels here a little bit hard. But basically, when we released in Rotorua, we had a socially distanced premiere. We had 5 cinemas, but Auckland was still completely shut down. And so Auckland cinemas couldn't open until our 3rd week. And overall, we found the Auckland audience has been really slow to come out. But they're getting much better.
And how long has Cousins been in theatres now?
We're 11 weeks now.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I mean, long ago, there was this thing called a platform release where you used to slowly have it in a few cinemas and then you'd add a few more and you'd add a few more, which is
and by
kind
week
of watching
5,
your...
week 5 you'd be at your peak, right? That's the way they used to do it.
And watching your journey, I feel like it's that. Do you feel there is a change where cinemas are growing and maybe they've said no at the start and then they start to say yes, or?
Well, we had a few that said no at the beginning, but then by week 2, actually, to be honest, by the end of the first weekend, I think most of them had come in and said yes. And then some obviously chose to come later because, the way you pay, your money gets better as the weeks go on. So some cinemas won't necessarily take you in week 1 because in week 1, as filmmakers, we get the most and it goes like that. So, but actually everyone basically took us between week 1 and week 2 because they didn't have much content. By week 4, we had Godzilla in cinemas. We also went out on the back of... No, we went out just before the school holiday. Yeah, by week 4, we were in the school holidays, so we had planned... because previously we've released 2 films, and if you go out on the back of a school holiday, mums are so desperate to get away from their kids, they book women's nights, which is actually why the Breaker Upper is that week to treat, because we had all these women that just wanted to get away from their children and go and see a film. So in that sense, it doesn't feel like the milestones at the moment matter as much.
I think that's about to change again, though.
Yeah, good.
Because we're about to see all these studio blockbusters come back into play.
Yeah, so of the fun that you experienced, what do you think that impact is going to be when they do come back out? Is it all back to how it was before for New Zealand films, or is it some new kind of...
It's so hard to know. I mean, it's really interesting that both Cousins and Savage are, really cultural films, and they really strongly reflect our identity and are quite important films, I think. And it's it's quite gratifying in a way, because when we were planning our release of those films, there's Baron Toa, there was Baby Done, and then there was us, Savage, and we were kind of like the ugly child, because we were the difficult film, because we were, it's tough, it's not an easy film, and it demands quite a lot of the audience, and I think Cousins does too on a level. And that is, coming from a filmmaker perspective, is kind of gutting, because it does make you feel at times you can only make entertainment, and that maybe audiences don't want to see films that are challenging anymore. But actually, this last period's shown that they do, and interestingly, it's the films that are more difficult that have done really well. But as I say, they're films that are very centred on our, who we are as a culture. And half of me wonders. I mean, I think the other thing about both our films is that they've got scale. We've got real scale in both films in terms of not necessarily. I mean, we both made the films for not massive budgets. I mean, we were lucky that we had...
But bigger than Baby Done.
Yeah, they're not little low-budget films, but they're also equally not... they're both very hard to make, right?
So hard. The Film Commission should have given us so much more money. But the scale comes from the emotion and the themes and the ideas that are being expressed, that I hope that maybe there's something in that audiences, New Zealand audiences, will continue to respond. In Australia, they've had a film called The Dry, which has done 20 million at the box office, and that's just phenomenal. But the Australian box office is doing better than ours. So that's the other thing. Although we don't have blockbusters yet, so you can't really work out what it is. Our box office is much lower than it would normally be. And of course, the problem with that is, even with the blockbusters, at least our films would trailer before it, or people would see our posters. We've really had to rely on social media. We've actually both got the same publicist, who are amazing, 818 in Auckland, and we really had to up our game, I think, in terms of all of that, right? And your campaign was amazing. Vicky's campaign just kept going, and meeting the characters and everything. You were desperate to see the film before.
It's because we extended it so many times.
Maybe, but it worked.
What can we do?
Yeah, it worked.
It's kind of, we were actually really working quite hard to keep the social going. But I've lost my train of thought. What I was going to say. Oh, we were actually, that was the trailering part of it is significant, and because that's where you reach the people that actually pay money to go and see films. So one of your biggest assets when you release a film is that you get, and there's quite a lot of jockeying around, where your trailer, who's going to play your trailer when,
but even delivering it, you have to deliver 8 weeks out, because then some will do it 6 weeks, some will do it for 4.
And how many weeks out were you? Because 8 weeks is the number sort of bandied around. How long before you were releasing was your trailer out?
We released our trailer in January.
You're right.
Because we were going out in April.
You were going out.
And then, but we had
in
2
cinemas
trailers.
as well, or just online?
Online, but then we had 2 trailers.
Yeah. And what about you?
We had 2 trailers too, but we went, so the one that everyone's seen, that was in cinemas for probably actually 7 weeks, 6 in some, but then some of our later cinemas to pick it up would only have shown it for a couple of weeks.
We had 2 trailers because we were targeting 2 different audiences. And the one that you've seen is the mainstream trailer, which was geared towards a much broader audience, and in a way kind of gave people the film that they sort of anticipated. It was meant to deliver the impression of a gang film, whereas the film itself is actually a character study. And we had a second trailer that was centred on relationships and was more female skewing. So that was strategized to go out through the boutique cinemas, the suburban cinemas around the country, where more female, which are dominated by more female, slightly older audiences. So we had 2 different cuts of the trailer that we used.
I guess sort of a little bit in summary, so we can get to some questions. I think that people are assuming at the beginning of something like COVID that if there's no films being made because nobody can make them, or there's no big films, like this, summarising what you're saying is that then you've got nobody watching films to watch the trailer, to get in there. There's nobody. This is the dark, gloomy version. And then that means that there's no audiences going to the cinemas, so the cinemas can't, afford to survive. In America, we've seen, large cinema chains close down. I think our exhibitors here have actually done really well to continue. And then if they're not selling the films, the distributors aren't able to make their money, and then they can't be supporting the films. And all of these things that everybody had thought might be just how badly it could go here, I think you both, proof that it hasn't. But what do you think, as a sort of a final thought on the theatrical, has changed? I mean, I have seen in Variety this week they're talking about the windows and the 90-day window before when you have a film in theatre, and it's 90 days before you can then go and start to put it on SVOD or any sort of streaming subscription payment. Exhibitors are not happy for you to have your film being so close, so they called it RIP to the 90-day window this week, and it's 45 days in the US and 30 in the UK. So that's going to be a big change.
Have they changed your windows for Cousins at all?
No, well, the funny
so
thing...
where are you, because you're now going to go, because we've really talked about theatrical, a quick word on the next part of your distribution.
Well, Cousins is funny because then we... usually you'd have a strategy as when you go in New Zealand, exactly when you go in Australia. But because Australia kept going in and out of these lockdowns and everything, we weren't sure when we were going to go or even how we were going to go, to be honest. And then we just decided to do it and to set a date. And we're going out on 10th of June, which happens to be my birthday, so I really hope it means something. But we made that decision a couple of months ago, so we would have had 3 months, and Vendetta have just gone crazy emailing everyone, and actually we're incredibly fortunate with the number of theatres that are taking us. It's way more theatres than we ever expected, and a real mix between the mainstream and the independents, which is really great. So in that way we didn't date the way you would normally, but also in terms of the rest of the world, we have our international sales for English-speaking countries is they are working out their strategy. So are they going to go virtual? Are they going to wait for theatres or streamers? So basically everything currently is on the table with this company, but we feel like we're in very, very safe hands. They are really great, and for us it's about partnerships as well, and they're really good in that respect. Because you just don't know. I mean, having just lived in the UK, London, I mean, the idea of going to a movie theatre in London is just like, what? You just wouldn't do it. Because you've been locked down for so long, the first thing you're going to do is get a really nice meal or a really nice drink. No one's going to go to the movies for quite a while. And the festivals, that just keep getting pushed and pushed, all of that's different because we've all got used to watching really amazing things at home as well. So I think the digital, and you found that, haven't you, digital?
Yeah, I mean, we had our actual release strategy and how it played out actually was in a way quite traditional, but and we've done one of the big things that has been quite a surprise for me, and DVD has officially died. Yet we've done really good numbers on DVD out of Australia, like really good numbers, and I think and we've also done really significant numbers on digital, so which I hadn't quite anticipated, and it's been quite in a way reassuring to see that we can make money on the film off digital. So we've gone out across New Zealand and Australia on all the various platforms. So from iTunes to Sky TV to Foxtel to Google Play, across all the digital platforms, and the returns from them have been, as I said, really substantial. And that it's a relief to see that. I do think, though, that it's just more and more hard to be an independent film in the international marketplace, and it's more and more hard to be a drama. I think drama is particularly difficult. Genre content, which can sell to the platforms, and often will sometimes get made for us, on lower budgets and still get seen. There's perhaps opportunity there, but the drama, stories that we've traditionally made and told, I think are very difficult because the market's, the market demand for that kind of content, the theatrical model's dead. It's very difficult for small independent films that come from this side of the world to find theatrical opportunities around the world. So it does make, I think, provide a challenge internationally for those kinds of films out of this country. So I think the realities of that. I'd be dying to know what the Film Commission's been finding on that in that space. That's a challenge that I see. I don't know whether you agree with that.
Yeah, we haven't gone digital yet, but
Hopefully
we'll make good numbers like Vicky did.
And it really sounds like like no one has the answers. No one knows how this will go, and you just.
No, and it's like everything. There's always an opportunity if you find the right pathway, and it's in that respect nothing's changed.
Well, if you find your audience, that's the thing. I mean, it goes to what we're constantly being told: who's your audience? If you don't know, you'll never find them. And actually,
it's a nice segue into a question from the audience. So ticket holders who registered were given the opportunity to submit a couple of questions. So one of them is, do you think the era of travelling to market to sell is dead?
God, I hope not. I love going to Cannes.
I don't reckon.
Love it.
I reckon we'll all be back there as fast as we can. In the meantime, we're all coping fine online. But it's not the same.
I actually really like it.
You like going to the market?
I love the speed dating, and I'm not saying that just because Chris is here. I literally love that because unlike the other ones where you kind of go and, there's lots of noise around you and, you've got 20 minutes and then you've got to run across town to get to whatever and then you don't want to be late and you're thinking about that. You've just got 20 minutes on the screen and you've all done your little prep, and I just feel like, you get in and out, you form a better relationship because no one's stressed and hot and sweaty and way better.
Yeah. It does. Yeah, the online environment does give you way more control.
Yeah, it does.
Usually, if when we go to Cannes to try and find partners for our films, you're always jet lagged, so you're always
running from this to that to that, and it's like
And you're always you have meetings with sales agents in their offices, and there's always it's a busy office. There's 15 people doing things and jumping into, interrupting your meetings or whatever.
And also they're going to talk to 30 people that day, and that's before they then do the cocktails.
But I still think that there is real value in being on the ground with people because, Savage is a good example of that. I took Sam across to Cannes when I was financing the film, and He had an amazing time because we had these meetings where people were, we literally had a guy panting at us across the table on one of our meetings. But we had a meeting where we walked in and sat down, and we'd done a deal within 10 minutes, and it was with Film Constellation, which was just sort of out of this world. And it's kind of an example of the value of just being in an environment where lots of people are looking at a lot of things and they know they have to jump.
Yeah, they've got money.
Whereas the online environment doesn't replicate that.
But will they have money now?
Yeah,
that's the question.
That was going to be my question. Do you think the market will have money now? I mean, will there be a market to go to?
Well, and it's not just will they have the money, will they spend it? like, are they scared? Are they worried that the theatres aren't going to be the same? Or are they worried about putting their hand in their pockets too early? Are we going to keep getting the old age-old, they'll buy it once it's made because it's a safer bet? I'm not sure. We're trying to finance something at the moment, and people will definitely take our meetings and they like it, but are they going to put their hands in their pockets? It's, to me, feels harder.
It's more risk averse than it's ever been.
Yeah.
So cast, for example, is a big critical factor in perhaps convincing someone to pay.
Should I throw to see if there are any questions in the audience? I know there were some more questions sent in. If you feel they haven't been sort of addressed, you could still raise it again. Didn't mean I didn't like it. I just felt we might have covered. Hi. It's you.
Yes, you.
Oh,
Row 2.
No, you're talking a lot about cinemas, and I'm thinking about the small screen, which is, it seems to me, which is where everyone's gone in the COVID world.
Mm-hmm.
People have gone to the small screen. Why is the big screen still so important? You haven't mentioned anything like Netflix or any of those other companies. And my question is really, should we be still pursuing the big screen? Or is it perhaps a better idea to pursue the small screen?
I was going to say that I don't think anything can replace the big screen myself. And it was interesting. I still think people want communal experiences. And it was amazing releasing Savage, because you'd sit in a cinema and you'd literally be sitting next to people, and you would have found this with cousins too, who were crying. And I had emails from lots of people in response to Savage, who wanted to share their responses to the film, and who told me stories about sitting behind someone who was a mess, or who they talked to after the screening. And I think it's a narrower band that we're operating with it in terms of the films that will play at cinemas well, that will attract large numbers. But I don't think, myself, I don't think that people have moved away from that as an option. It's just that it will be within a narrower bandwidth that people make that choice.
The box office is still viable.
Our films have shown that it is, but I think fewer films will do that. And I think that where I sort of going with that kind of culture, kind of identity conversation, was that I think that films that are much more character driven, or maybe more domestic drama type films, I think those ones will perhaps find it a bit more difficult. But those films always have. So
it is like with Always Way, it is dependent on the film and it's dependent on the genre. So the Breaker Operas made more at the box office than both Savage and Cousins, and we also sold to Netflix, and it's done really, really well on Netflix. So I don't think that you can say one way or another. I think for both of these particular films, they were both made for the big screen. They're both epic. They span decades. You go on that journey. And if I'm honest, it would probably have made me cry to know that a lot of people could have watched Cousins only on their phone and not on the big screen. But I think for some films, some films, absolutely.
The reality for New Zealand films is that they're not getting picked up by those Netflix and platforms at the front end, and so they're being bought.
Yeah, we got bought out from South by Southwest. Yeah, from a film festival.
The financing doesn't really work around that as a proposition.
Yeah,
either.
you generally have to have theatrical release in order to access the funding.
Yeah.
So that's why we generally talk about theatrical first. But there is a lot of talk out there of, can you day and date? That's what I'm talking about with the reduced theatrical window. But that's like the front runner. It's even a loss leader in some cases, but it's where all the focus is, all the advertising, all the the glitz and the glamour, and that's what they think will make people go even to watch it or to watch it online. They'll go, oh, I saw something about that. I want to watch that now. Have we got another question? And then I'm sure I'll get booted off.
There's one.
Hi.
Hi. I was just wondering, in terms of dealing with streamers, whether or not it's your primary release or secondary after cinema. Is there the same focus on dates as there is clearly with the cinema release? Or is it less of a concern?
That is an interesting question that I can't answer that well. I mean, for the breaker operas, we went out on Valentine's Day to 190 countries at the same time. So basically 9 a.m. in 190 countries. And then they did their campaign. So we were in the. They allowed us to actually do 3 film festivals before that to get some hype. So we're in London. So and two in New York. But so basically, October, November, we were in film festivals and then publicity, and then we went on that. But I don't know.
I don't really know the answer to that one.
No.
I'm sorry, but I was going to say that the streamer sales are. They're a goal that everybody has,
Oh, it's
and
lovely.
it's complicating because it's almost your first priority once the film's made is to see if you can secure a significant sale to a streamer that will take the product global. Well, we work with sales agents, so we deliver our films to a sales agent who takes the role of representing it and strategizing its marketing and sales globally. So,
but for Reunion, they because it is a genre film, they actually, our sales agent did take it straight to the platforms, and lots of them were like, "Yeah, we like it, but not right now," as opposed to what they usually say is no, but it's like not right now. And so you get to wait a few months and then you get the no. But that was also because they had so much content.
Yeah.
They needed so much content that they weren't really sure. But because there's so many films never getting theatrical, then...
Yeah, and I think the date thing is important to them because they look at how much volume they're trying to put out. It's their own resources and it's a saturation of how much they think people can take in if everything comes on the screen, at the same time. And new this week.
Yeah, and those sales are not necessarily really valuable. They don't always. They're not always for a massive amount, and for a New Zealand film, it can mean that you're on a platform with, a lot of other content, and so it's not necessarily the best thing for the film because you can disappear on those platforms too. The problem that you have then is finding a way for your film to get profile because it's in the hand of these platforms in terms of how they reflect it on their site, and you might be tucked away in the back drawer somewhere on the site for no one ever to find, So
now I feel like I can almost smell pizza. Would you like us to take one quick question over there? Yeah. Hi.
Congrats on your films, guys.
Thanks.
I was just wondering if you had any interesting kind of breakdown of like where the film played really well in New Zealand, like South Island, North Island, suburban cinemas versus.
Well, actually, we both did well in the Bay of Plenty, didn't we?
Regional.
Yeah. Yeah, weird. I mean, it makes sense for us because we shot half of it in Rotorua, but
it was partly because Auckland was messy. So for both of us, we had less than ideal releases in Auckland, and the Auckland box office was down across both films. And for Savage, we when you release a film, you literally get a report that will track through all of your screens that you're on and how many numbers you're doing in each screen. So it comes through once a week, isn't it? Twice a week. But we did really great numbers in the regions, and obviously in Wellington, which was our film's home. But
we did pretty well here too. But now, actually, weirdly, Auckland is coming back for us. Manukau is actually doing really well. So
it was quite confronting doing the releases, because you would have done the same. It's the first time that I've been around a lot of cinemas in a long time, and oh God, there are so many big, massive cinema spaces, and you'd go in and there'd be no one else around. There'd be your event, and then 5 other people drifting in to see a film, which was pretty confronting.
But even with us, so we did some Q&As, over the weekends, and we went to one in Upper Hutt in the theatre up there. Its name escapes me, begins with M, but yes, we had to knock on the door. Brian and I had to knock on the door at 8 o'clock to get let in, and we're like, what? And we were the only screening. So although they had 6 or 5 cinemas, they were done for the day. And that's what we found, actually, is that all of them are minimising their screening times. So that also makes it harder. So
half of me wonders whether we've yet seen the proper fallout here in New Zealand of the, I think the bigger venues particularly. Yeah. I don't really know, but I haven't spoken to anybody lately.
Both the films, but at small suburban kind of cinemas.
Yeah.
Nice.
Which still feels like a more comfortable space.
Yeah.
Just emotionally than going into a big cinema in town kind of experience. So I was wondering if that...
Although Riccarton, Christchurch Riccarton, that for us did massive numbers. Yeah. So you've still got the students, I'm assuming, around there that are still doing it. But definitely.
I get confused about whether it's our age. No.
Whatever. Come on.
Is this because I'm older and I like the smaller cinemas, or is it?
Does not think we're old, do you?
The rest of New Zealand. Does the rest of New Zealand still love the big cinema?
Well, I went to the big cinemas because I love seeing a big screen. I don't like a lot of people sitting next to me, so I loved COVID because I could just have so much space. No one was chomping popcorn in my ears. I'm quite happy for that, but they need to stay open. Look, I cried during both of your films, and I'm really delighted that you could share your stories with us tonight and give us a sense of hope, actually. I think we've seen your successes, and I think you've given us a sense of hope for where films could go, but it seems like an ever-changing road ahead of us. So I'd just like to thank Georgina Conder and Vicky Pope. Thank you very much.
The Talk series is proudly supported by the New Zealand Film Commission and Images and Sound. Music for the podcast was provided by Poddington Bear, and voiceover is Lucy Wigmore.